This is INCradio DCEM 954, the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ or Iglesianicristo. Hello and welcome to another episode of INCradio Florida presents Sunny Side Up Family Talks. And this is the show where we come to you with some conversation pieces that are very near and dear to families and hopefully encourage them to have conversations amongst themselves. These conversations can obviously go on for a really, really long time, but we've only got 30 minutes. So I am going to throw this over to one of our wonderful hosts who's going to help welcome all of you this morning, and that is Sister Joy there in Orlando. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is for you, Sister Joy.
Hello and welcome to Family Talk, Sunny Side Up. Yes, indeed. So it doesn't matter the placement of the sun in your city. So whether, like Brother Robert said, whether it's evening, it's morning, it's afternoon, if the sun is high in the sky in the afternoon, or if it's setting in the clouds, or if it's just rising, it's always a sunny side up here. And we're so happy that all of you are with us. So be sure to let us know where you're tuning in from, where you're viewing from, because we always love hearing from you. And today, most especially, we have a very special episode where you will be able to walk away with some really good tips when it comes to having good conversations with the family. So we're really excited to dive into that. But before we do, we're going to travel back over to the west side of Florida to get our international greetings.
Sing Chao, Toitenla, Liza Santos, thank you for always tuning in Sunny Side Up Family Talks. It is a very lovely day, and we'd love to have you here with us this morning. Stay with us in this episode as we'll share the practical tools to help you and your family to build a character in this digital world. Hello, Sister Joy and Brother Robert.
Thanks so much. I've got to ask Sister Liza, what language was that greeting in today?
Oh, as you remember from last episode, you requested a Vietnamese.
And you pulled it off.
I'm ready. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sister Joy, I don't know about you, but I'm ready for some banh mi.
I am with you 100%. When we said that we requested Vietnamese, I was also thinking of the same thing. I want a Vietnamese sandwich as well. I'll throw in a coffee in there too.
Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us today. And on today's episode of Sunny Side Up Family Talks, we're going to be breaking down something called Family Netiquette 101. It's really essential in today's world because every household should be teaching this to their children, because it's from texting and the tone of our text to social media, all that respect and the privacy boundaries that we have to start observing because of the way that we handle things online now and handle conflict online especially. It's really important for our families and our kids. And today we're going to be sharing some practical tools that hopefully are going to help your family build that character online. So we're going to jump right into this whole realm of family netiquette. Let me go ahead and share a couple of slides here that should help us to kind of follow along. And of course, the first thing we're going to be talking about is defining what is family netiquette. It's kind of a strange word, Sister Joy, isn't it? I actually didn't. I had to look it up.
I think it's really, but it's funny that you said you had to look it up because I had to say it, and then I visually saw it in my mind, and I go, okay, I think I know what that is. It's etiquette and internet. So
the internet. So
yeah.
it's probably unlike last week's episode where we had to try to figure out these terms by all of the youth. These are more grown-up terms that I could look up. And netiquette is apparently the character and the manners that we practice when we're online, right? Because etiquette is just the way that we carry ourselves in real life when we're having conversations or interacting with people. But this is now the internet, so that's where netiquette comes from. Did you ever hear this term before, Sister Liza? Before this episode?
I've heard that word po, the netiquette, but it's like kind of like a deep word. because someone, when I was watching like a podcast, so someone is teaching the proper way of answering like comments, giving suggestions through internet. Yeah, but this is kind of like different word to me. But
Much deeper, right? Well, I
yes,
don't think it can be any deeper than the word we learned last week, which was performative, which was
oh
taught
yes,
to us by our teenagers. So you'll have to look that one up. All right, so we're talking about netiquette, and when we talk about netiquette, why is it so family, or why is it so important to the family? Well, it turns out that just like with everything, etiquette, or in this case, netiquette, there are three pillars that we're going to be talking about primarily. And this is honestly, I think this is actually true even outside of the internet, right? I mean, when we interact with people, you've got to show respect, got to take responsibility. And most importantly, also, you've got to be careful about what your reputation is, how it's potentially going to be damaged. So when we look at the first one here, we talk about respect as being one of the first pillars. It means when you're online, there shouldn't be any bullying. You should use sarcasm. I mean, sarcasm is a very common thing, but not one that's meant to hurt people, right? Sarcasm that wounds is what we're saying here. Or public shaming. In the old days, you publicly shame somebody by talking about them in the middle of a crowded room, right? Or in a school hallway or something. So you're publicly shaming. And that's usually limited to whoever happens to be present in the hallway, maybe 50 people, maybe at most 100 people, But when you do it online, it's so different because the audience is so much bigger, right? It's a huge audience. And more importantly, you don't know who the audience is because you don't get to see everybody, the millions of people that are potentially looking at that. And another real pillar, which is under respect, is also about disagreeing without necessarily attacking. It's so common that when you're online and you tend to not agree with someone, and this is even true in person. Wouldn't you say, Sister Joy, when we're sitting there and we're having a conversation with someone, and it's okay for us to disagree, but it doesn't have to lead to you attacking them, right?
100%. I had this conversation with my kids, and I think for any parent, right, when you see your children kind of, going at it a little bit, I have a tendency to just to back off a little bit. I like my kids to not to argue, but to kind of work it out themselves, because they obviously bring a different perspective. They're obviously going to have a different opinion on things, and it kind of helps. I'm hoping that this is going to help nurture that ability to disagree without attacking. I mean, we're still working on it, obviously, but so that as they grow, and then I'm still growing from this as well, that they'll learn to be able to share their opinion, their perspective, even if it is different, but with respect. Being able to be comfortable to, okay, wait, I have a different opinion about this, but to be able to do that without attacking, without doing that, right? So, of course, 100% the respect should be there. We can disagree. We can agree to disagree.
I agree with that. Yes, I agree. Like we
Oh,
can.
you don't disagree. You agree. Right?
Yes, I agree with this one that we can agree to disagree or disagree, without hating, not just
Mhm.
attacking, because we tend to see and we tend to read something on online that we don't agree. It doesn't align in our values, in the manner that that we are being raised, but we can tell our opinion without attacking the person who posted or who wrote something about it, and without hate words or hateful words.
Right. Well, and do you think that a lot of that, though, Sister Liza, is because people have this sense of anonymity, meaning that I can post an answer and do things because maybe they change their screen name or they change their, whatever, because they think no one knows who they are. That's what probably encourages them to want to be able to do, to say things that are hateful.
Yes, it could be because a lot of people now use like a troll accounts, the dummy account wherein
Hmm.
they use it. They made it to use it to attack someone without,
Specifically for that.
yes,
Mhm.
without, um letting the people know who they are really are.
Right. Well, they used to call them uh I forget what the term is. I think it's something like keyboard warriors or something.
Keyboard
Keyboard
courage,
warrior.
or
Keyboard
keyboard
courage. Yeah.
courage, something like that.
Because you're behind the keys of and you're behind your screen so people don't see you. And that really is a whole different thing, because when we're talking about these pillars and about netiquette in our families, we're talking about and assuming that everyone's identities here are available, right?
Available.
That's why it's because we know who they are. They're our family, for example. Well, in along with respect, obviously you have to take responsibility, right? Meaning, and this is going to be something that as your kids, my kids are already grown up, so I can't control what they post. But the both of you have young children, especially you, Sister Liza, very young children, that when they do start posting online and teaching them the importance of thinking before they post, right? And Sister Joy, your kids are already online. I know Jacob and Caleb, Alexis, they're all, I don't know if Alexis doesn't have an account yet, does she?
No, for sure. Alexis does not. Caleb does not either. Not yet.
Oh, okay. So
It's Jacob.
Jacob. Okay. So when you were teaching Jacob about this, like what were some of the things that you really wanted him to understand, or maybe conditions that you placed before letting him have his own account?
That's really good, because what we're discussing now are things that we discussed actually as a family. Like these are things that we have to consider. And I think it was a really good time for Jacob, because at least he was a little old enough to be able to, like, okay, I can honor these rules. I understand these rules. Whereas I think if he was a little younger, I- while he might agree to them, maybe he wouldn't have the full um, understanding yet. So I think the age that Jacob is now, it's just such a great time for him to understand that all these things that we're discussing now, right, when it comes to etiquette, are really, really important.
Yeah. And thinking before you post is so important too, because back to Sister Liza's point about, like, if you're angry you see some, there's some things they use the term, what is it, that it is a trigger, right? It triggers you, right? So there are certain things that trigger you, and then so people tend to just immediately, like, oh, I've got to answer that, or I've got to respond to it, or whatever. And but that kind of obliterates the whole thought of thinking before you post, because you can't think when you're just upset, or you can't think if you're using your response as a way to have a visceral reaction to something. So thinking before you post, pausing, right?
100%. And, this also applies not just for, posting online, but texting. Now, while, maybe your kids are not yet online, like, for example, my kids are able to, they have the ability to message. So this is a big one. And this is something I have to share. While Alexis and Caleb are not online, they have the ability to message, right? And I remember, the child will remain unnamed, but one of my kids, when we were first learning about this, we gave the rights for our kids to message. But we first tested it with just select family members. So of course me, everyone here in the household, and then my brother and his family. So when you say think before you post or think before you text, this is such a great way to test it, tried and true, because you really don't think about it, because you're with people that you're comfortable with. And then if you, like, let the door open, if they're used to just telling you everything, for example, our family, we're very straightforward. For those of you who know Brother Billy, he's very straightforward. So we tell everything as it is. So when it comes to thinking before you post or thinking before you text, it's so important that we teach our kids this same exact thing when it comes to others, when you're having a conversation, even through messaging. So it's completely different, because, later on we're going to discuss, there's a different tone when it comes to texting. You can't always hear that tone of voice. So it's really, really important please take the time. And we got to teach our kids this. It takes practice. It takes, constant reminders to really, what does that mean to think before you post? Like, I sure thought about it. I was really mad before I posted it, or I was really mad before I sent the message. But, to really dive into this, think before you post, think before you send the message, for sure.
That's a great perspective, Sister Joy. Now, Sister Liza, are there certain things that when you're about to send a message, whether, let's say, texting, for example, are there things that you consciously know that this is going to be handled better with a phone call than texting it?
Yes, but if it's really like urgent, like it's very a sensitive matter, I usually do like, can I call you or can we talk, rather than text it or send a message, or using the messaging app. It is better to converse using call and personal po. In
Right.
that way, you can see the sincerity, you can see the expressions of how these people talk about a certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Well,
like you said before, there's a tone. We don't know if this person is, like, are you mad? For example, are you mad? No, I'm not mad. I'm just trying to like explain or say
yeah,
something.
I'm trying to explain it to you in all caps, so that way you
Well,
get it.
definitely yes. So we remember the all caps, so it tends like a very strong
Very
expression,
aggressive
strong
expression, right?
feeling. Yes. So when you text me all caps, I might think, oh, he's mad.
Or
That's funny
even if,
because I didn't realize that all caps meant like yelling. I didn't know that. I actually learned that from the kids, because again, when I go back, when I said earlier, we were messaging each other. I didn't realize that. So that's definitely something I learned and I picked up. So that's also something to think about, right? When it comes
yeah,
to messaging.
I remember my mom when my mom had her first the cell phone. So when I had my first cell phone, my mom used to text me all caps. And then she asked me, "Asaan ka na? Anong oras ka uuwi?" So I thought, "Oh my god, I need to go home because my mom is mad."
she's mad, but she didn't know that the cap lock was on the keyboard, so everything was in caps, so that way it was easier.
Yes, and when I get home, I said, I was with my friends. We did this. We had the projects, blah blah blah. And I said, it's still early for my curfew, like because I have a curfew po, 6 p.m. I said, it's still early. Oh no, I just asked if you're going. Oh, I thought you're mad.
Well, I can tell you, Caps has a big difference, because if I get a text from my wife that says, uh, "Can I call you? We need to talk," in all caps, I will turn my phone off, because that means that's not going to be a good conversation. So, but it's different than if you send me, "Hi, can I call you? We need to talk," and then there's a little heart emoji next to it, or a smiley face or something. It just makes it more appealing. Just a little bit of advice when you're trying to communicate to your husband.
All I have to say, Brother Robert, is if you had to turn off your phone, I would be very careful when you get home.
Oh, I wouldn't come home for a
You're
while.
gonna walk in a tiptoe.
I'm already scared for you.
Why is your phone going to voicemail? I need a new phone. It broke, I guess, was the. All right. So, a new responsibility before I get myself into any more trouble than I already am. Screenshots are forever. That's a big one. Kids, they don't understand that. They think the delete button to remove a post gets rid of it. That memory will live on forever.
Yes, I agree with this one. These screenshots are forever. Um, but this is how the people will use this one. If we use this one in shaming or something, that is really like, that's not good.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yes.
And is this something you taught Jacob, Sister Joy, early on, or was that Brother Billy that made sure that he understood that?
Oh, you know what? I think it was understood with their family. However, we have our own, our own family chats and screenshots now. I mean, I have learned the kids have taught us how to make stickers. And so, yes, I think that alone has taught us. We've all learned from each other that, okay, screenshots definitely are forever, and you can turn anything into a sticker now. So,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
be
And
mindful.
it'll be repeated
Oh, yes.
with every message.
Oh, yes. It sure will. It sure will.
Well, the next one under responsibility is protecting personal information. Again, for kids, so important, right? Because they're so unassuming, they're so vulnerable, and they're naive to just how bad some people can be. That they want to be able to get this information and use it for not such nice things. And I think protecting your personal information, meaning don't share things like your address and locations and things like that when you're online. The big thing used to be on social media. You're going on vacation, and if there's going to be nobody home, then don't post that you're out someplace when you're already out, because then people know that your house is empty, right? It's different if you have people that are there. So, it's just those types of little tips that people don't even often think about, because that's a part of protecting your personal information, your privacy. And then reputation is so important. Kids don't understand the importance of the things they do today and the impact that it will have potentially on their future. It says here that your digital footprint literally follows you. And we talked before the show how a lot of politicians are learning this lesson now because of 20 years ago they may have posted something controversial that didn't align with what they're saying their beliefs are today. And there are some really good internet sleuths out there, reporters who can dig up anything about anybody. So it's your digital footprint, so important, and especially for kids, because in the future when it's time for you to get a job, as part of the background check, right, they'll check your social media, especially depending on the kind of job it is, or even getting into certain schools or relationships. When you're seeking to find that other part of your life, that other person for your life, you better be careful what they might see in your old social media. So let's move on to the next, which is practical family rules to consider. Sister Joy, why don't you take rule number 1?
Sure thing. Rule number 1 is to pause before you post or pause before you message, right? Ask yourself, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And there's also one thing I like to add. Ask yourself, is this who I am? Is this the character? Is this who I am by posting this? So if you're full of emotion, and you all know, I know about emotion. My name is an emotion, right? Ask yourself, is this who I am? Is this who if I post this message, or if I send this message, is this telling others who I am and what I want to say? Is it coming out correctly? So that's definitely something to think about. And pause before you post your message.
Absolutely. Sister Liza, why don't you take us to number 2?
Yes, for our rule number 2, it's private correction, not public confrontations. We have to address the conflict directly and avoid comment section arguments. This is kind of like if we see something that we don't agree, and then we want to, like comment, give our own opinion, or maybe we see something that's not kind. What is a better way to do it is to call or text, address it to the person privately, like, can you take it down? Or can you delete this one? I think this is not, something like that, rather than commenting on that post. And then, it's like a kind of like shaming part or attacking to the person who posted it.
Right. And it becomes an online argument, and it's an online argument for the world to witness because everyone is watching, everyone can see it. And as we learned in the previous slide, screenshots will last forever. So being able to do that, and as you said, do it privately, that's probably the most important aspect.
Can I also add one more thing about that, po? Like, for example, we're going through something, like when you said, when you're full of emotion, when you're mad, and then you posted something online, we have to think about who are we talking to, because we tackled about reputation. This is
Hmm.
not just the reputation of who posted it, but the person you are referring to. For example, a family matter or a family problem. Those are not meant to be shared online. Those are
Yes.
meant to be talk about or talk privately.
Yeah, and that's true. And some people, I think, find social media as a way for them to create this extension of their way to reach people. I mean, I've actually heard of cases where people use social media because they've been trying to reach somebody or get to somebody and they're being ignored, so they decide I'm just going to post something inflammatory about them. That's going to get their attention. And yeah, it probably did, but it was probably the wrong kind of attention. So you want to be very cautious about it. You want to deal with things privately as much as you can. And I mean, my personal approach to social media, if anyone who follows me on Facebook, Instagram, or whatever social media, is nothing but positivity. That's the only thing that you ever see on any of my posts is always going to be positivity because that's, like Sister Joy said, that's what I want people to see about me. That's what I want people to feel. And if it brings them joy and it helps them, then great. But certainly not. I'm never going online to pick a fight. So
Yes, that is true.
that's really what you don't want to do.
Yeah.
The next one about posting without permission, that's a big deal because social media cameras, they make it so accessible for you to post things. You snap it on your iPhone and hit one button, and next thing you know, it's now online. They've made it so simple. And when it's family members, especially, you want to be careful because some of them, we tend to be a lot more liberal about taking like photos that aren't necessarily very flattering of our family because we think it's funny or cute. And those are the ones we want to post, which probably is not going to end up ending well because then in rule number two, someone's going to get a non public confrontation as a result of it. So you want to be sure that you're always asking for permission. Is it okay for me to post, especially with your people that you're close to that and teaching this early. So Sister Joyce said that was one of the first sort of things that she wanted to be sure that Jacob was aware before he was able to have his own account was, these are the conditions. And one of those conditions is if you're going to take a picture of people, ask their permission before you post it. Maybe they
100.
want to be low key, as we learned last week. They don't want to be high key. They want to be low key.
I
So we have
remember
to thank you.
Naomi.
Remember? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I remember Naomi, like I record her, and then she asked me, "Are you going to post that? Please don't post it." Or, for example, po in jiu-jitsu, like, "Mama, please don't post that," because I said, "Why?" "Oh, because I didn't, she let someone like beat her. It's just because she's my friend. She's smaller than me." So something like that. And then I'm gonna ask like, is it okay if I post the picture? For example, Naomi's with her friends. Is it okay if I post a picture of you of uh of your kid? Because not all parents wanted their kids to be
Oh
posted
yeah,
online.
especially children of
Yes.
other parents. That's a big
Yes.
deal.
I
Yeah.
I I always ask permission if it's
Yes.
okay to post a picture of their
Yeah.
kids with my
That's
kid.
super important. Yep. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, 100%. I was going to say, does this apply for if you have a group photo and then your friends in the background eating a big plate of pancit?
Yeah,
Do you
I'm that
tag
friend,
them?
by the way. I'm that friend who's in the back with the
That's
pancit.
usually me too. I'm the one that's in the background eating, like, oh, and look, I was tagged.
How did that happen? that does apply, Sister Joy. That if you do accidentally photobomb and you're eating, you are given permission to have to ask. And some additional rules, tone matters, right? Emojis don't fix everything, much like what people think. They don't fix everything. And you've got to make sure you clarify if you're joking. I mean, a lot of times you'll throw things up there that are sarcastic, and not everybody gets sarcasm. So we want to be sure that we're being careful about that as well. And then lastly, we want some time to just not be on our devices. We've got to give our families time to just kind of detox, get away from the devices, because those devices are designed, and especially the applications on many of those devices are designed to do exactly what they do, which is build this sort of addictive routine of you just being on there and scrolling. I don't know how many times I'll go on my phone with a specific reason to look up something, and then I get distracted by a post, and then I start reading it, and then I'm scrolling, and then by the time I'm done, it's 15 minutes later, and I forgot what I was going to look up. So
This
we've
is
got to take,
actually a nice tradition to do every, not just dinner, not just lunch, but to put your phone down, because this is what we're practicing. We're still getting there. So sometimes, the kids still demand for like a phone or an iPad. Sometimes they get bored. I understand that, but we tried to like limit or do not use gadgets while eating dinner or lunch or breakfast. Let's try to talk. This is a family time, and then no device in bedroom. So this is my strict rule po. When we're um at in bed po at night, we tried to put no phone anymore, so that at first they won't stimulate, because
right.
once you open the cell phone, the kids get stimulated. Yes, instead of them feel, tease, and then they're gonna get sleepy, but suddenly they get stimulated because they see something on the phone. And also, this is a good time for the kids to talk of how they all day went, how they've been through the whole day. I think at night is the perfect time to talk about what happened the whole day, because when I welcome my kids, for example, Paul, when I welcome them from school, how was your day? I feel like it's not the good time to ask, because I always get the same. It's okay. It's fine. But I want something like deeper. Like, what happened?
It's funny that you said that, because that's true. It's when you try to get it fresh, and I think as parents, right, we try to capture it fresh. You're like, okay, how was it? It's fine, it's good. But nighttime, when you put that device away, it's amazing how talkative our children can be. They have so much to say. So if we, and I love that, if we practice, and we're still getting there too, if we just practice to put the device away early, it's going to be you will have a lot of time to hear all the stories about everything. I mean, they might even talk to you about what happened the day before, 5 years before. I mean, everything comes out, I think, right before the bedtime hour is when that's the most talkative time, I feel like, that our kids are, because they're winding down. So that's a really good tip.
Well, it's funny. It's exactly the same thing. We go to bed because that's when Kalulu starts talking my ears off. She's sitting there and I'm trying to go to sleep. And all of a sudden, so I just grab the phone and I give it to her and say, here. But again, that's bad modeling, Sister Joy. So I'm going to need you to take care of this last set of bullet points here.
I will gladly do that, but I'm very afraid for you right now. When it comes to modeling, let's get back to modeling, right? Modeling does matter, yes, for sure, because and this is the toughest part about this entire conversation, about this entire episode, is to model it, because as parents, we have to model what we're expecting, because we are so we're ready to give information to our kids, right? But we have to ask ourselves, do we overshare things about our kids? And again, I feel this to the deep of my core, because sometimes, right, as parents, when parents get together, we just want to share. It's almost an outlet, but we have to ask ourselves: are we modeling the behavior that we're expecting from our kids, right? Are we oversharing, not just about our kids, about everything, right? And are we arguing publicly? We don't want to do that, right? Sister Liza touched on that majorly, about that. Some things are meant to stay private or one-on-one. Are we glued to our screens? That's another thing too, that we have to make sure that it's so easy to get into that, stuck into scrolling, right? So we got to ask ourselves these questions. And then, of course, children, they were as caught than taught, right? They learn digital behavior by observation. And it's really important that we have to ask ourselves these things. And we're holding your hand through this too, because it's definitely something that we all are definitely working on.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of modeling, it's crazy how we can see how quickly time flies when you're online. So just like you guys who are watching us right now, 30 minutes right out the window, it's, you blink, and of course, all of a sudden now we're at the bottom of the hour for our show. But as always, we are so grateful that you all were able to join us today, because again, this was a very important topic for us to be able to share with you. Being able to demonstrate proper etiquette is an important thing, not just for obviously us, but more importantly, that our kids learn that through us modeling the right behaviors. So we're really grateful that you were able to join us today. We're going to have a follow-up topic to this in the coming weeks for an upcoming episode, but we've got a long list of new items that we're going to be bringing up, and we hope that you're going to be there for the journey with us here on Sunny Side Up Family Talks. But for now, this is Brother Robert Tapalis here in sunny Tampa, Florida, for a change, for Sister Liza, who happens to be a neighbor here in Tampa, Florida, and for Sister Joy there in Orlando. We want to thank you all for joining us today. We're so grateful that you were able to be here. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next week on Sunny Side Up Family Talks.
This is INCRadio, DCEM 954, the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ, or Iglesianicristo.
Hello and welcome.